Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. I'll talk very briefly about the authors, go into a spoiler-free overview of the plot, talk about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, who I'd recommend the book to, and finish off with what I'll be reading for next time. I know Amal El-Mohtar is the New York Times book review critic, mostly in fantasy and science fiction. She herself has won Hugo Awards as well as some other science fiction awards for, I think, mostly her shorter work. Max Gladstone himself has been nominated for Hugo, so they're both fairly well regarded in the science fiction realm. I believe Amal, and I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, I do apologize. Is teaching science fiction. She teaches creative writing at the University of Iowa, or at least at the time of this book. I think this came out right before COVID, so I believe this was 2019. 2019, so it is a few years old. But what this is This Is How You Lose the Time War is a pretty short work. It's about 200 pages, so it's a short novel, and is about two soldiers who are essentially fighting in the titular Time War, who are known as Red and Blue throughout the book, and they are on opposing sides and fighting this battle that kind of, as it sounds, goes kind of what they describe as upstream and downstream through time, and there are different timelines or strands, and they're fighting what sounds like a never-ending war in this world, and they form something of a relationship that you learn throughout the book through the letters that they send to each other, and which is obviously verbatim to their commanders. And the whole book is really about this relationship of these two characters formed in kind of this really deadly battle of these. It's almost like two assassins or two soldiers or FBI agents. You have a lot of like spy versus spy feeling on it, and they're forming this relationship or friendship as the book kind of goes along, and what's going to happen with them, what's going to happen with the war, and what's going to happen to them because of this kind of secret relationship. So I thought it was a cool concept. I thought the idea of kind of multi-timelines and strands and stuff, and kind of these agents who are sent back in time in order to cause events to change in the future. And so they do things such as, one example is, I think in one of the beginning examples is one of them is setting up the religious. There's basically something where a person will hear something and take it as a sign of God. And so in order for this to happen, that agent, I can't remember if it's Red or Blue, goes back years in advance to kind of plant the seeds to make this thing happen. So I thought it was a really, really cool concept. I think that it ends very, very strongly. I really, really like the ending of this book, and I think the ending kind of tipped a little bit in its favor. I think for a while there, I was kind of on the edge of whether or not I did enjoy it. For some reasons, I'll get into the cons. And I liked the different worlds that they go into. They go to Atlantis, for example, and they both kind of talk about how they don't like Atlantis, and I thought that was kind of cool. There's like a steampunky London that they go to. So the worlds that they actually go to I thought were interesting. And it's a quick read. I got through it in a few days, so it wasn't too difficult of a read. I would say if there's anything that I didn't like, the book is not very, very long, and there's not a lot of world building. And if you're someone who wants the story of how the Time War came to be and the two sides of the Time War, what they're fighting over and all that stuff, you really do have to kind of infer that. And I found like the most difficult thing to get past was the writing style. I was hoping it would be more of a omniscient narrator telling the story of these two characters, and it's really not that. It's really from their perspective, very, very close. And so you don't really get the history of the Time War, what these sides are fighting over, because it's not really the point of the book. And that may frustrate people. There's a little bit of language getting used to. There's some terms that are used where you have to kind of parse a little bit of what this means. What is the Garden versus I think the other agent is simply called the Agency. How are these two sides different? And those things are all kind of inferred as the book goes along. I like the ending a lot, though. The last, I'd say, 10 to 15% of the book really, really moves pretty quickly. It's pretty evenly paced up to that point, and then it's very, very quick at the end. I thought that the two characters who were the main characters could have been really more distinct. It sounds like they were very similarly voiced. I do like one of the things that I think is, if you're a fan of language and puns, there's a lot of puns throughout the book. and there's a lot of play with language and stuff in the two letters that they write back and forth to each other. they both sound a little bit like Victorian era school teachers writing letters to each other, which is kind of back to the point that I didn't like about the way that they both sounded. I wish they had each more distinct voices, and both the voices kind of sound similar to me in a way that I didn't quite buy. But I think there are going to be people who really like this. If you're someone who likes saga, this is what this reminded me of. It basically reminded me kind of saga or saga, but basically these two time-crossed lovers in that book who are fighting on two sides of this never-ending war, who one of them is a technologically advanced culture, one of them is based in tradition and magic. It sounds, there's very, very similar overtones. And if you want kind of that vibe, this is that. They go to Romeo, and they see one of the places they go to, or the strands they go to, is with Romeo and Juliet. And I think that's kind of a tip of what story is being told, if that helps you at all. But I do wish it was more background, and I thought that stuff would have been more interesting, and I wish it was more of a traditional book in terms of, this is the backstory of this world, this is what it is, this is why they're fighting, and these are the differences. But it's not even that. I mean, it really is, you have to really infer this, but it's really more to me a meditation of loneliness and how people find relationships even in hard times. And there are definitely sci-fi elements to it, but I'd say it's lighter science fiction and really more about these two characters and the relationship that it forms. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, then you'll like it. My biggest struggle with it, I didn't particularly like the language, and I felt I had to parse to like understand what was going on. To me wasn't always clear. And I wish there had been more backstory of the world, because I think the inferences of the world, of the kind of the reasons for the war and the rules of the world, you do have to infer, and I wish that was maybe more clearly laid out. I think I would have liked that a little bit more. So if they maybe found a way to do that without info dumping to a great degree, I think I would have liked the book a little bit more. I would have felt maybe less lost at times of what exactly was happening. But this is how you lose the time war. If those things sound interesting, if you like saga, then I think you would like this. And I'll leave my link below to Saga if you want to check that out. My review there of the first 54 issues if you've never heard of that. But that's that book. Next week I will be reviewing The Cobweb, an older Neil Stephenson co-write. So my second book in a row that's going to have a co-author. So that'll be interesting. If you have enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll leave that link below if you want to check it out there. Until next time, bye.